Am I blue? Am I blue?
You know, ever since we moved the news to
Yes.
Twitch, where we stream the news every 6 p.m. Central Sunday nights, you think, oh, good. All the depressing news, all that stuff, that can all just be moved to a live show.
Sure.
People can see how upset we are.
Right.
But then when it comes to the main show, this show, the Just Enough Trope podcast, I'm your host, Caliban, joined as always by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mikan Hana.
I just involuntarily say that whenever I say the Just Enough Trope podcast.
Of
I'm your
course.
host, Caliban, joined as always by my co-host.
And even if I'm not there, you say the same thing. Right.
Just to strangers.
Okay.
You think, oh, we can just talk about, the world of the nerd and
Mm-hmm.
the things that we see and the movies and TV shows and comic books that come out. But unfortunately, sometimes the tragedies that strike us are related to the movies, TV shows, and the comic books that we talk about.
Right.
And so we have to talk about them on the podcast.
Exactly.
And today we'll be talking about some very unfortunate losses in the world of comic books and TV shows and movies. 3 specifically, people have passed away. One of those people is artist Carlos Pacheco. Another one is artist Kevin O'Neill. And another Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, has passed away.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing that... There is no particular balm in Gilead for this one.
No.
Or at least
I would
the balm's
agree.
in Gilead, and we're not in Gilead. So no balm for us.
No.
And it's just, it's sad, but at the same time, it wouldn't be sad if these people hadn't, touched us.
Well, yes, exactly.
With the work that they did. And specifically the work of Kevin Conroy, who was voiced Batman for 30 years.
Yeah. That's unbelievable to think about.
Yeah, I think that, the first episode, or the launch of Batman, the animated series, was 1992. So
There you go.
So yeah, it's literally been 30 years that he has been the voice, the primary voice of Batman. To the point where they want to do a fun live action thing on a TV show on Batgirl, and cast a future Batman, or the Batwoman show. Sorry, and they cast Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. No. Right.
In the Crisis episode of Batwoman, and so it's just I don't know what to say. So I'm going to let you say something.
It's
not that you know what to say.
Really hard to find the words, honestly. He, like you said, he was the voice, and he really is. When I think of Batman, I think of Kevin Conroy, and this one really hurts. I'm still seeing articles about it, and we found out about it a couple of days ago, but it's still raw for me, and just trying to express what a huge loss it is, because I think he was also, besides being a really great actor, I think he was just a really nice person.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who have worked with him over the years, of course, said wonderful things about him. And I feel like, everybody is kind of mourning together almost on this one, because I feel like he did touch a lot of lives with Batman, the animated series, and the Justice League series, and everything else that he's done. Of course, Mask of the Phantasm is excellent. I mean, he was Batman in video games. He did so much work.
Yeah, somebody who, ostensibly at the end of the original incarnation, the Dini verse, the Tim and Dini verse,
right?
With the last episode of Justice League Unlimited, they go on to reboot the Batman series with a different series, and so sort of a different team, and never really recaptured that again. You know, they had a short thing with the Bruce Timm Green Lantern show, which
Sure.
still I'm not sure we know why that was canceled. And they didn't follow through on that. Maybe people weren't watching it.
Huh.
And then Bruce Timm wanted to return with the Gods and Monsters
Yeah.
Justice League thing, and that kind of didn't really go. And so we're learning now that Warner Brothers doesn't know. They don't know what they're doing.
No.
And hopefully James Gunn will help change that. But
That would be great.
Never really got those guys back together again, except in the world of video games. Because when Rocksteady, the video game company, got the go-ahead from Warner Brothers to create their Batman game, they thought, well, who else are we going to get? Like, we're going to get the guy. That's who they went to. And so they got almost all the voice actors that they could get from the original series of the Diniverse.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill's the Joker.
Right.
I think Tara Strong had taken over at that point for Harley Quinn, so she was in that.
Okay.
Kevin Conroy as Batman, and just, used all those same actors. And also Dini was involved with charting the story for the series of games as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So it's kind of like seen as an unofficial sequel to that universe.
Okay.
And because it really comes to an end with Gotham Knights, but because the story kind of comes to an end in a way in the games, I won't ruin anything or spoil it. We get like a closure for a lot of those characters.
Yeah.
A lot of those characters whose voice actors are now gone. Kevin Conroy, the guy that did Alfred, the guy that did Commissioner Gordon have all passed away. Careful in the shower, Mark Hamill.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
But I mean, it's just a whole class of people who are graduating from life to whatever comes next.
Yeah.
And specifically talking about Mark Hamill, he's written a couple things on Twitter recently, and he was just talking about how, what a nice guy he was, and how he was, a brother from another mother, and he always enjoyed spending time with him, and they'd spend time together, and that whenever he was going to do a project, because he sort of like unofficially retired the Joker a while ago, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do the Joker anymore. I've kind of done, what I set out to do.
Sure.
And Conroy was doing the games. And he's like, all right, well, I'll just do it. And his policy became, if Kevin does something, I'm going to do it. And so they toyed with some other Batman voice actors in the later DC animated films, where I think they also had a couple other Jokers, but then Kevin went back to those. And so it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do that too.
Okay.
Because he just liked working with him so much.
Yeah.
One of the last tweets that I saw from Mark recently was him just saying that he loved seeing people's tributes to him and the words that they said, but that Kevin wouldn't want us to be sad. That's the last thing that he would want from us at this time, and to just appreciate, what he did and continue to hug your kids. You never know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You do never know. And I mean, I think we all knew that he was sick for a while, but you just...
Well, not recently.
Not recently?
Well, okay, so it was, the official cause, or he was struggling with cancer. He had intestinal cancer. Oof. But remember like 10 or 15 years ago when it was rumored that he was really sick?
Yes, I do.
I'm not sure if this is like, this is like, it was a chronic thing, or if it was something that had gone into remission and come back, but there had been kind of a health scare, and I don't know if he had talked about it much, where he kind of disappeared from the circuit for a while. But then he got better, and then he was, everywhere. He was
I do remember
doing
that.
all kinds of shows and doing a lot of work, and so everything seemed great. But apparently, it just wasn't. It was pretty quick this time around. So that is horrible. But we're going to take Mark Hamill's advice. We're going to do what Kevin would have wanted us to do, and we're going to appreciate the work and the legacy of the work and the character that he's left behind today by talking about some of his best performances as the Batman, specifically within that universe, the Diniverse of animated shows. So we'll be talking about some selected episodes from Batman the Animated Series, as well as Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah.
His major appearances as Batman in that world. He was on, he had a pretty good two-parter on the Superman animated series too,
Oh, okay.
where he starts dating
There you
Lois
go.
Lane.
Of course he does.
Uh-oh. Clark Kent's not going to like
I
that.
mean, Bruce is kind of a playboy, so of course he starts dating Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
And he's there because, who was it? I can't remember. It was some villain of his goes to Metropolis.
Okay.
I don't think it was the Joker. And so he tracks him there. But his cover is that he goes as Bruce Wayne to, for business interests.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while I'm in town, I'm going to date Lois Lane. And Lois is like doing it because she likes Bruce, but she's also kind of trying to make Clark jealous. And he starts to suspect that there's something about this, this Kent that he's not telling the whole truth here. He's not, something's not on the level.
So does Bruce not know Superman's
No, they have
alter
not.
ego?
They have not met at this point.
Oh, they haven't met
No,
yet.
this is all, yeah.
Ah,
This is a
okay.
different universe.
Okay. Got it.
And so Clark's like, I don't know about that, Mr. Wayne. I don't think he's got your best interest at heart.
He's not on the level.
And he goes home, Clark, and he goes to his apartment, and he's like, no, I don't know. We'll have to figure this out some other day. But at least it was a quiet night. And he takes his shirt off, and underneath, he's got his costume, obviously, a big S.
Mm-hmm.
We cut through the window of his high-rise, across the street, on top of a building, a rainy night, and we see Batman lower a pair of binoculars and just smile.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Clark, anybody can see in your window at night when you have the lights
He's
on.
too honest. He doesn't. He dresses with the windows open.
I
He
know.
doesn't think
Close your
about that.
windows, dude.
So we'll be talking about those episodes in a little bit. I wanted to just circle back, though, and make sure that we talk a little bit about the other two comics greats that we lost recently.
Yeah.
First of all was Carlos Pacheco, who was from Spain originally, still from Spain, I suppose, but did a lot of work over here. And he penciled one of my favorite, I think one of everybody's favorite Avengers miniseries, limited series called Avengers Forever, which
Okay.
I don't think that we've actually read for the show. Well, maybe I have to do that.
Add it to the list. I think we should do it.
The reason I think that I've sort of not suggested it up to this point is because it's very intensive. It was from I think the late 80s or maybe early 90s. I actually think, no, it had a long publishing run. It took 10 years to come out totally. It's 12 issues.
Okay.
But it is sort of like the last Avengers story. It takes Avengers from they all get Kang's involved. And in fact, I think they might adapt some of this for the next big Avengers crossover. Because
Sure.
Kang pulls a bunch of different Avengers out of time because he needs their help to do a thing or something else.
Of course.
And it's written by Kurt Busiek. And it involves a bunch of different Avengers from different times, and it gets so messed up, and it draws on all these different eras of the Avengers. And so I thought maybe it's a little too much for us to digest.
Need a lot of background to really get it.
Right.
Okay.
But now that everybody, my dog is, a mid-level Avengers expert because of all the films and everything like that. Maybe we could give it a shot.
We could probably give it a shot, and then I could be like, what's going on with X? And you can fill me in on things that I'm missing or are going over my head.
Yeah. He worked both sides of the street, as it were. The street in question is Madison Avenue, or I don't know, wherever the Marvel and DC were in New York. And
looking at binoculars across the street at each other. Right.
Just smiling.
Yeah.
And worked on, like I said, the Avengers, also the Fantastic Four he penciled for a while.
Sure.
He was a Superman artist for a long time, and also did a lot of JLA stuff as well, and some X-Men. So he's basically worked for both companies. He's one of the first Spanish artists to really break out in mainstream comics.
That's cool.
And he's got a really great style. I think it goes really well with the JLA. It's I don't want to say cartoony, but it's often sort of a bright and friendly kind of style.
Okay.
And I don't know what he was doing recently. I think he had been working on some stuff with Kurt Busiek still.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't. It's another thing where I don't think anybody really expected this. It was just really sad. He had been suffering from a neurodegenerative disorder,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and he had it had been kind of slowing him down, and I think he had taken some time off for physical therapy and whatnot. But he was still drawing. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, he was still doing it.
Well, I mean, do what you love, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that probably
but I mean, like,
maybe that helped him in some ways.
right?
You
But
know?
you need like your hands. You need, your body to do what
know.
you love.
Yeah, I
Um,
know.
but he was still doing it. So
Yeah.
and he passed away in Spain. But he, I don't know. He'll be missed. I don't really know what to say.
Maybe he went back to Spain to be with family.
I think he probably just, you can just work from home now. Right?
Well, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Days of
you
going into
can.
the bullpen are over.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless they're like, you have to be here if you want to work for
Yeah,
us. Or
if you draw for
something like
Elon
that.
Musk.
Oh, gosh. Don't even get me started on that dumpster fire that's going on over at Twitter.
Yeah, not super great.
No.
And also, we need to talk about Kevin O'Neill, three-time Harvey Award winner, two-time Eisner winner,
Wow.
winner of the Bram Stoker Award, a British comic illustrator who got his start, I think, in like publishing, and advertising.
Interesting.
But then sort of opened up. It started like his own like zine and drawing, and from there got into 2000 AD.
Okay.
Which is a British underground comic with a long storied history, which
Interesting.
we will someday cover on the show. But suffice it to say, not Marvel, not DC, but sort of underground British comics
Okay.
that were very influential. Remember that you couldn't really get American comics at certain periods in British history.
Oh, I actually don't know that I knew that,
Because,
to be honest.
all right, I'm going to do a little tap dancing, but I think I'm going to
Okay.
get most of it right. Because of the import tax.
Really?
Yes, because they're a different country and they are a
Jeez.
different economy.
Yeah.
And they want to value British literature and not
yeah.
import other countries' cultures.
Sounds like Japan to me.
And it was either on the publishing side or on the receiving side, but somebody didn't want
Uh-huh.
to pay that.
Okay.
So often American comics were hard to find over there. And Marvel
Wow.
got around it by essentially creating their own imprint, Marvel UK, the imprint,
Oh.
and developing their own characters. Now, those characters, would Wolverine visit those characters? He would do that.
Uh-huh.
Often Wolverine would show up. And
Sure.
it was still, their universe.
Yeah.
But it was like characters that were specific to the British Isles.
Interesting.
Ironically, not Captain Britain, although he became a big feature of Marvel UK.
I am very confused right now, but okay.
But that's not important. Later on, he got work working for DC.
Okay.
And this is a great story about how he started doing like fill-in issues and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like Green Lantern and stuff like that, like little things. And the Comics Code Authority, which was still kind of in power at that point,
Okay, sure.
objected to his art. They said, like, we
What?
don't want his art under the Comics Code. Like, we reject this.
Why?
Well, DC asked them why.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, okay, maybe like one issue had scenes of a crucifixion. But I got to tell you, one of the first Marvel comics I ever read
Wow.
was X-Men. I'm going to get the number wrong. 187 or something like that. And the first page, the opening page, is Spider-Man crucified on a cross by Cullen Goff.
Did you buy that on your own or did your mom buy it for you?
Yeah, one of those two.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And anyway, so the DC said, hey, well, why? And they just said, we don't like his style.
What?
We find it objectionable.
That is just like, I don't even know what to
But
say
this
to
tells
that.
you, okay, so this tells you, A, DC's got its artists back at this time,
Uh-huh.
and B, how little power the Comics Code had at this point. They just ran it without the Comics Code stamp.
Good.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
This
it's
comic's
for you
unrated.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he worked for Epic Comics for a little while with a self-created series called Martial Law.
Okay.
and worked in Dark Horse and some of the smaller publishers. And then he teamed up in 1999 to form America's Best Comics with Alan Moore. And this is, of course, the launch of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which would come to define the rest of his output for the rest of his career, for the most part. And, of course, people think of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, they think of a bad Sean Connery movie, but it's so much more than that.
It is. The comic
We know
is
that
actually
it's
good.
about the lady that if you pull the ribbon off of her neck, her head falls off.
Well, that's part of it. It's not the only thing.
That's not it at all.
Yeah.
That's
I
not in
know.
there in any way.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. I think I thought that for some reason.
It's not for everybody. But suffice it to say,
Wow.
it
Sorry.
originally began.
I'm so insulted.
It originally began as like the Avengers of Victorian literature.
Mm-hmm.
There is a, what would you even call it? A series of stories, but maybe like a trope or a setting called the Wold-Newton family.
Okay.
And it is relatively modern and recent, but it posits that all these public domain characters, you know, from the great pulps of the late 19th and early 20th century, are all related in some way. Everybody related to Doc Savage's dad and Sherlock Holmes's dad and Mina Harker's dad or something like that. They were all in a carriage. And a meteorite struck near the carriage and affected their destinies somehow. And so all of these characters are in this sort of shared universe. Well, he took that idea and ran with it. And the idea was that they were writing in a universe where all literature is real. With everything that entails. From Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde being real to Tom and Jerry, possibly in some form. And so it starts off as this something very like the movie, like this, you know, elite crack squad of people from dusty old books. But then later they began to evolve that idea and bring it into the modern day to the point where Mina Harker is teamed up with Orlando, the immortal gender-neutral person, and Alan Quatermain, and they're fighting Harry Potter.
Right.
Who is the Antichrist.
Of course he is.
Yeah. So, and what was great about it was no one but Kevin O'Neill, I think, could have drawn some of the things that Alan Moore asked him to draw.
Sure.
He has this very idiosyncratic style, but yet captures enough of a caricature or, you know, what you think of as, you know, the face of Sherlock Holmes, which is not Henry Cavill, by the way.
Of course not.
And so a lot of the issues are peppered with these Easter eggs where a character is supposed to be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And they won't point it out necessarily. Maybe you wouldn't know, but there's enough of that character in his kind of, I describe as kind of a loose sort of energetic style that you go like, oh, that's so-and-so. And that's important because as they get closer to the present, our reality, a lot of these characters are still under copyright.
Sure.
And so
right.
one of the volumes of LXG, which it's not called, but I'm going to call it that for short, takes place. It's all sort of a play on British spy fiction. John le Carré, you know, Ian Fleming.
Right.
And one of the characters is James Bond.
Of course.
But they can't ever call him James Bond.
Right.
And I guess if you don't do that, you can get away with it.
Right. And it's obvious that that's who the character is.
It is James Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And the heroine of that is Diana Rigg, Emma Peel from The Avengers.
Sure. Of course. I mean, I think that that's really cool and really clever. I know I started reading League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and I never finished it, but I'd like to fix that someday, you know, and like actually finish the run, because I was interested in it. I don't know what happened, but I for some reason didn't finish reading it. But I would like to, because I really was enjoying the story, and I do think that his art is really good, and I really enjoyed that as well.
And I kind of wonder, maybe they're the perfect team, or I don't know. I kind of wonder what he would have been. I'm sure he would have been doing something also
Right.
amazing without more. But like they kind of have become inseparable creatively for almost 25 years.
Well,
To the point where, the movie came out in 2003 and it was, of course, awful.
Yeah.
And so they disowned it.
Didn't you see it on your birthday?
I've never seen it.
That's not true.
No, I've never seen it.
Really?
Alan Moore has gotten really good at disowning films, but this is one of the first films of his work that was disowned. Then they sued Fox for plagiarizing it, and I don't know the result of this suit. I don't think that it went well, but they said basically they alleged that Fox plagiarized it, right? They saw the idea and went, "That's a great idea. We can get away with this because nobody owns Alan Quartermain at this point," right?
Oh, like they didn't.
Then after
Okay.
they had already kind of had the idea, then they went to Moore and Kevin O'Neill and got their made a deal with them as consultants so they could say that they adapted it, but it wasn't actually adapted. It was just stolen. Now, how do you prove that? I don't know.
I have no idea.
And you know who
how
didn't help him
prove
at
it.
all?
Who?
DC Comics.
Of course not.
So that's just another nail in the coffin. And then, of course, also he doesn't like DC because, they published V for Vendetta, right? And
Moore doesn't like them. Is that what you're
and
saying?
Warner Brothers said that Alan Moore says this movie's great. He never said that. And so he wanted to sue him for that too. So anyway,
course he did.
all I'm saying is like throughout all of that, Kevin O'Neill's like, "Hey man, I just draw the books, so I'm just gonna draw them."
Leave me out.
And
of it.
he did.
Yes. Right. I was gonna say, you have to be kind of like a special kind of person to continue to work with Alan Moore for a long period of time.
You have to be somebody who, and I wonder if he was married. I don't know. I don't know anything about his personal life.
I don't know.
But I bet his wife, I bet they get along because it seems like you have to be, if he somehow managed to not piss off Alan Moore for 25 years.
Right. That's what I'm talking
then,
about.
He must be a very agreeable person.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Alan Moore, like, wonderfully creative person and notoriously difficult to work with. So, yeah.
Well, just do what he says.
Yeah, right.
That's all.
Don't ask.
So he'll be missed,
questions.
and his work will be missed as well.
You've heard about Margie, heard about Dinah, heard about Susie, but ooh, I gotta get my old tuxedo pressed, gotta sew a button on my...
But let's just get right into it. Let's talk about the episodes of this show that we want to talk about, these several episodes of these shows. The first one that we picked was an episode of Batman the Animated Series that we picked specifically because Kevin Conroy said that it was his favorite performance as Batman. And that episode is called Perchance to Dream. And it is... Well, suffice, it's an episode of the first season. I was going to tell you when it came out, but they famously aired these way out of order.
Right.
They were never really designed to have like a serial continuity. But yeah, I mean, it was produced at a different time than when it was
Sure.
aired.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Sure.
Do you want to tell us what happens in Perchance to Dream, this episode?
Well, I'll give a basic, I guess, overview. Batman is chasing some guys who are up to no good in his car, and then they get out and they have a fight in some factory or warehouse somewhere, and then he gets like there's something that happens. There's like a flash of bright light or something. There's something that comes at him, and the next thing we see is he's in bed as Bruce Wayne and he wakes up. And we don't know that there's anything amiss in the very beginning, but we slowly learn that something is not quite right.
Right.
So we come to learn that his parents are still alive and that he's not Batman and there's no Batcave and Alfred doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's all this stuff, and it's really weird. And also, he's engaged to be married to Selena Kyle.
Right.
And, like, he's like, none of this makes sense. My life is too perfect. And like, he sees somebody else's Batman and he really freaks out.
Right.
And the guy looks like him and like moves like him. And it's like, what is happening? He's like, I swear I was Batman. This seems so real to me. And so then he's like, oh, I'll Batman myself. And like, he gets like rope and like, what is that thing called? Like this like big hook thing. And he's gonna climb this bell tower that's in the graveyard.
Right.
Because he always went to it on his watch or something like that. Like somehow he knew whoever was behind this, who he suspected was whoever was Batman, would be there. And so that's what his plan is. But he accidentally parks in a no parking zone. And so then like cops are following him there. And he finally gets to the tower and he climbs up and the cops are following him this entire time. And he calls out to Batman and Batman shows up and is taunting him for a while. And then he pulls the mask off and it's the Mad Hatter. And he finds out that, or like tells the Mad Hatter, this is just a dream, isn't it? Like, make it stop or whatever. And like, well, it wasn't the real Mad Hatter. It was a dream Mad Hatter. So
Right.
he's like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no way out.
Speaking
like
of suing
saying.
people, they've ever thought about suing Inception?
Yeah, right. I know. Good point.
Although that's a Warner Brothers film, isn't it?
Is it? I don't even know.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, that's Christopher Nolan. That's
Yeah.
true.
All right.
Oh
well.
But he's like, I know how I'll wake up, and he just throws himself off of the bell tower because suicide was the answer. And I was like, that's
Well, that's not really
not
what they say.
okay.
But
No, but yeah. And then he wakes up and he takes the device off his head and he fights the Mad Hatter, and the Mad Hatter's really mad, and they end up arresting him. The end.
yeah.
I ended up telling the whole story. I didn't really mean to.
It's only half an hour long.
I know.
Less than that, 22 minutes.
I know.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Did
Yeah.
you mention that he can't read?
Oh, that's right. He knows it's a.
I never learned to read.
He's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe there is something wrong with me. My life. What is wrong with my life? My life is perfect. My parents are alive. Selena.
Oh, well, let's
Kyle's-
read the newspaper.
Yeah, and then he can't read. And then he takes the books off the shelf, and they're all weird, and
Screw
the
you,
letters
books.
are all like wonky. And he's like, no, and that's how he knew it was a dream, because you can't read in a dream because you use the other side of your brain.
Is that true?
I don't know.
That's not true.
That just seems.
Although I believed that for years, and I know other people who believe that. Thanks to this episode.
It just seems like a smart thing to say in a TV show. I don't know.
Well, it's funny that, even though he's not Batman in this dream or whatever, he still, thinks like Batman.
Yes.
He's still reasoning
the
it out.
detective. Yeah.
And this is one of those episodes that it really digs into, not every episode of the Batman or every story about the Batman has to be like, you've got two lives, you are two people inside.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, and it's the idea of, first I just realized that, not trying to be morbid, it's Kevin's favorite episode, but to sleep, perchance to dream, the undiscovered country,
Yeah.
his death, all from a speech that's about suicide. So
Oh my gosh.
maybe suicide was the answer in this case. But that's
Oh.
those are the layers that you get in the writing of these shows. But just the idea that he is kind of two people. And I think
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy's theory about Batman was that, because a lot of people like to say like, oh, Bruce Wayne's a real mask. And it's like, okay, well, wow, what an edgy idea.
Yeah. Right.
Grow up a little bit and then tell me how you feel about that idea.
Yeah. Right.
And Kevin always thought that, Batman really needed Bruce because that's his human side. Otherwise he would just doom scroll in the Batcave all night.
He
or all
totally
day.
would.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's him not surrendering to the darkness that he has to sort of swim in to do what he does.
Mm-hmm.
That is Bruce. That's his life.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that apparently like Leslie Thompson is also a psychiatrist as well as a medical doctor. But he goes to Leslie Thompson in this dream, and she tells him, you know, you're an idle rich person, you know, and you feel like you haven't accomplished anything. And so your unconscious created this life where you could feel like you were getting something done. And she's right. Just flip it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's right about the waking Bruce Wayne. In this dream, you know, she's talking about creating this Batman character that he could be instead. But she's, you know, so, and that's all his brain too. So his brain understands his psychology. Like he knows that he has this division in him. Mm-hmm. He's not taken aback or surprised by it. Like say Robert Pattinson's Batman would be.
Right.
He already understands that, but he just can't get out of this dream because I can't read anything.
Yeah, Bruce has self-awareness about, you know, what he's like as Bruce and what he's like as Batman. I think that that's really true. But like, yeah, he has no idea how to get out of it. And all these books are going on the floor. Gosh dang it. Yeah, he can kick.
And the kick is jumping off a bell tower.
Yeah, right.
Which is a reference. I mean, the series is steeped in noir references, but apparently the bell tower is a reference to film noir. I mean, like Tim Burton's Batman ends in a bell tower, right?
I think so, yeah.
Vertigo.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a noir exactly, but it is a psychological thriller.
Not exactly a noir, but yeah.
Yeah. And then the final line, of course, it's the stuff that dreams are made of.
Yes. I mean, this series is it's very noir. It's also like got so much like Art Deco and like 1930s, 1940s feel to it. I don't know what the heck Selena's like outfit was in this episode.
Let's talk about Bruce's subconscious.
Yeah.
So apparently,
what is happening?
Early in the show, they really leaned heavy on it's the 30s, but they've got cell phones thing.
Yeah.
But this is a lot. So in
it is.
Bruce's subconscious, he dresses Selena Kyle up like a schoolmarm.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
But
and
she's
then
got
also,
like big puffy shoulders in the dress.
And then what does it mean that this is one of the few episodes I think where Martha Wayne is voiced at all, but Adrienne Barbeau is the voice of Selena Kyle, but she also plays Bruce's mother in this.
Oh, that's weird.
Leslie, help us out with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I need you to meet another doctor. Crusher to Dr. Freud.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Not Crusher, Pulaski.
Pulaski, yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. That's weird.
Yeah, and always the great voice talent in Batman the Animated Series and of course going on to Justice League. But Roddy McDowall is the voice of the Mad Hatter. And he's doing that Roddy McDowall thing.
What's that Roddy McDowall thing?
Oh, talking like this. Well, I was born in England, but now I live in Los Angeles.
And I talk like this all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it works for the Mad Hatter, you know?
Doing his Planet of the Apes thing.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, if you can just think really quick about the episodes of the animated series that you've seen, like where would you rate this?
I mean, I would rate it pretty high. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, something different that you don't always see in like an episode of an animated series, and like, really pushes the boundaries of what you know of this character, I feel like. And I just thought it was interesting too that he was Bruce for most of the time and he wasn't really Batman, but I still found it interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I always find that to be the case. If I saw a movie where it was a Batman movie, but he was Bruce Wayne most of the time, I'd be like, what the hell? But this is a half-hour episode in the animated series, and his life is like all turned upside down, and he doesn't understand what's happening, and he has to be a detective and figure it out. So yeah, no, I really liked it.
It's funny because when you look at like the best lists of the best Batman the Animated Series episodes, Many top 10, top 20 lists are filled with episodes that are very Batman light.
It's
Whether they're
interesting.
Bruce Wayne, whether they're episodes where the villains, are talking about Batman, or Batman, for
Right.
some reason he can't be Batman. So we couldn't use those for this because we want to talk about his performance.
Yeah.
But this is definitely on some of those lists. This is a good one. And this is one of the episodes too where he starts to range in Batman, because we're going to talk about this is one of the earliest episodes. We're going to talk about a mid episode of Batman, a mid time period, and then an episode from the last season of JLA. So at this point, he's been voicing the character for over 10 years, and how much the voice changes. This is one of the first episodes where Batman starts to get less. He was doing hey, get over here, Joker.
Right.
Sit down. I'm the Knight. I'm Batman. Like, he was doing that, and that changes. He stops doing that, and it becomes just, like a different kind of thing. It's still authoritative, but less, inhuman, less
I think it's
trying
more
to be
subtle.
scary.
Yeah, I think it's more subtle.
The complete opposite of the Christian Bale Batman voice.
Right. And I mean, I read something, I don't remember when this interview was, but Kevin Conroy said something at one point about how he was thinking about when, I think early on when he was starting to play the character, about like, are you, this guy wouldn't just put on the costume and that would be the only thing that would be part of his disguise. He would disguise his voice as well.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's just such like a clever thing, and it shouldn't be that. I mean, it makes so much sense. So but I don't think that everybody thinks that way when they're portraying Batman. In fact, I know that they don't, just from like the way that they portray Batman. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I guess Christian Bale's Bruce is not as husky and like in your face, but still, I don't know if he approached it the same way, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, it's just like, man, Batman is just like, 7 foot tall, lantern jawed guy, with a double barrel chest. I got to take a meeting with Bruce Wayne here. We had to have the doors widened so he could get into the boardroom. But I don't know who Batman is, though. Could be anybody, really.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So nothing you can do about that.
No.
So that's a pretty great episode, I think. Let's move on to the next episode, or pair of episodes, that we're going to talk about. And that is from the first season of the Justice League cartoon, which these episodes came out in 2002. And it is a two-parter called Injustice for All.
Yes.
And it features the first appearance of both Lex Luthor and the Joker in the Justice League cartoon.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Lex Luthor was the the main sort of villain, bad guy of the Superman animated series. And the Joker, of course, in Batman. But this is the first time they both show up in the team show.
Gosh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
What happens in this episode?
Yeah, so I have seen, and I really should go back and watch all of Batman the Animated Series. I want to do that. But I've seen all of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, so I've seen these episodes before. But this is a two-parter, like you said, and it starts out with Lex Luthor, or is it Luthor? It's Luthor. Taunting Superman with a piece of kryptonite, and he's threatening him and all that stuff. And then it turns out it's not Superman, it's Martian the Manhunter. Yeah, exactly. And I think at that point, like, Batman and Green Lantern come in and are like, "Oh, you're done, Luthor," and that sort of thing. And then Luthor tries to escape because, of course, he has a backup plan, and he like blows up his own building. That was his plan. And he escapes, and like it's either, I think it's like a helicopter type thing. But as he is trying to escape, Superman is following him, and Luthor we see him kind of bolt over, like he's not doing so great. Like all of a sudden he feels like some sort of pain in his chest or something. And Superman sees that the helicopter or whatever is going down, and he's like, he doesn't want Luthor to die because he's freaking Superman. And so he saves him because he's Superman. And Luthor comes to, and he's immediately like, what did you do to me? Blah, blah, blah. And like, there's a doctor there, and he's like, Superman's like, Lex, we got some bad news. And apparently he's sick because he's been handling kryptonite for all these years. And he's like, what? I didn't know that could happen. And, you know, he's really upset. And of course he blames Superman, who's just like Mr. Nice Guy, like, my arch nemesis is going to die and I feel really bad about it.
Yeah, right.
And because this is, you know, Boy Scout Superman. And Lex is like not gonna take this lying down, and he's like, well, what can we do? And then the doctor's like, there's nothing we can do, it's terminal.
There's nothing we can do.
But Lex isn't gonna take that, and he gets put in prison because of what he did. And he's next to, what is his name again?
The Ultrahumanite.
The Ultrahumanite, who is this big monkey guy who's got his huge brain, because he's smart, coming out of his head. And they're neighbors in the prison, and Lex strikes a deal with him, and he's going to pay him money to break him out.
Right.
And so they do that. Gosh, what happens next?
3-4 minutes of the first episode.
Okay,
of
fine.
2 episodes.
So Lex, as you say, kind of forms like anti-Avengers team
Justice League.
Yeah, Justice League. Sorry, what was I thinking? Anti-Justice League with
An Injustice gang.
Yeah, with a whole bunch of characters, including, gosh, Cheetah is the one I remember. One of the snake guys.
Copperhead.
The chick with the pink mask.
Star Sapphire.
It's Star Sapphire?
I'll translate for the audience.
It's Star Sapphire?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not make that connection. The guy with the magic stick that comes out of black
50
stuff.
Cent.
No.
Oh, yeah. Shade.
Not
Shade the Changing Man. Just regular Shade.
Just regular Shade. He's shady. The Ultrahumanite, of course, and Grundy.
Yes.
I remember Grundy. Because you have to remember Grundy. He's a great character. So they're going to... Lex is going to pay them to destroy the Justice League or kill them, including Superman. And at first they're like not sure about it, and he's like, I'm gonna pay you a bunch of money. And then they're like, okay. Really hard to win over. And how does the Justice League get there again? I can't remember how their first fight that they have.
I don't know, they clue the clues, and they end up, at their
lair or
no
whatever.
well so there's two different
That's true.
abandoned buildings.
Yeah, there's one with like
Gotham and
weird...
Metropolis. There's a real estate crisis going on because there are just a lot of abandoned buildings.
There's one with weird toy statues.
Yeah, but there's a different one.
Yeah.
And so they track him down, and they have one of the big cross team fights that this show does so well.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It's really done well. There's a lot of one-on-one fighting, and towards the very end of the fight, Copperhead bites Batman on the shoulder, and he gets knocked out. Like
Batman gets a tetanus shot.
It's poison.
Yeah, no, he's a snake guy.
But he gets knocked out. Maybe Batman knocked him out with his last feat of strength or whatever. So there's like this line at the end of the first episode that's like, oh, we got one. And then they're like, oh, but they got one of ours.
Right.
So they bring Batman back to the
other abandoned building.
No, it's the Justice League Their hideout. What
yeah,
is
I
it
was just
called?
gonna skip the extra acts because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah,
I
I'll
mean,
help you out.
Superman says you can't go anywhere.
They would have just kidnapped Batman if it didn't have to be 2 episodes. So
Right.
instead, they bring Batman to the infirmary on
Yes.
the Justice League satellite.
Yes.
And tell him to stay put, and they leave. Then Batman gets up and leaves.
Because of course he does.
And tracks down the bad guys at their hideout.
Yeah.
Because he's Batman.
Uh-huh.
But then he's captured.
Yeah, because he's not 100%.
No.
And
But who strikes the final blow?
with what?
With a bag full of rocks.
Oh, the Joker.
Yes.
Yeah, the Joker is now in on the plan. And he's
Well,
like
reluctantly for as far as Luthor's concerned.
Luthor doesn't want him there, but the Joker's like, you need me because it's the Batman.
Infinite Crisis, which I think Pacheco did some art for, was a big crossover, and it involved, it's a long story, but it involved an alternate universe Lex Luthor who was good instead of bad.
Sure.
And pretty much like all of the heroes and villains in the Marvel Universe. Excuse me. I'm so used to saying Marvel Universe because
That's
we're Marvel
okay.
shills.
Yeah.
In the DC Universe. But the Joker's not really in it. And at the very end of it, they've kind of figured out whatever the thing is that they have to figure out. But Alexander Luthor, who was good, but turns out was bad, gets away.
Whoa.
He gets away, and he's hiding in like an alleyway or something like that. And he's like, phew, got away from that. But then the Joker shows up, and he's like, you didn't invite me to your party, and this is what you get. And he sprays his face with acid and melts his face.
Of course he does.
Because it's a DC comic in the 2000s. So it has to be very horrible.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, he didn't invite him on purpose because the Joker is literally a wild card. You don't want this guy around.
It's like the
But
the
if
bad
somebody
fairy in
kidnaps
Sleeping
Batman
Beauty.
and is going to torture and kill him, the Joker wants to be there. He wants to be in on it.
Yeah.
So now he's here.
Yeah, it's like the bad fairy or Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty. You don't want to invite them. So,
You're right.
yeah.
I have a great idea for a reboot of Maleficent.
Yeah.
Right? We get her out of there, and we put, Angelina Jolie, and we get, who's the female Jared Leto?
God. I don't know. I don't know.
Melissa McCarthy
who
is.
looks good in clown makeup. Yeah. Oh my God.
Arlene
Maleficent?
Sorkin. Yeah.
What?
And yeah, so go ahead.
So then basically Luthor puts him in he's locked up, and he puts some sort of brainwave thing on him so Martian Manhunter can't sense him. And the JLA has no idea where he is, and they're all taking the bad guys are all taking turns watching Batman to various degrees of success.
And Joker says, "I'll just kill him."
Joker just wants to kill him,
Let's
and
just kill him.
Luther is like, "No, we need him alive," and he's like, "You cannot be alone with him."
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on Luthor's reasoning as why they need him alive. They want the clicker, the garage door clicker for the satellite, but
they don't need him alive to do
once
that.
it's clear Batman's not going to give up the secret, like, yeah. But anyway, the Joker's like, look, I know Batman's, and we don't want this guy just sitting in the basement. We should just kill this guy now.
Just kill him now.
But
What are
nobody
you
wants to
waiting
listen
for?
to the Joker.
No. And Luthor, struggles to get the Batman utility belt open, and he eventually does, and they get the clicker, the garage door opener to the satellite, and they go in there and plant the bomb. Martian Manhunter sees them, but gets knocked out. The rest of the crew comes back.
Which, how does that, isn't his head silly putty? How does that even work?
I don't know. They just needed it to happen in order for
They
the
certainly
plot
did.
to happen. You know?
When he takes human form, then he can get human concussions.
I guess.
Doesn't he have a huge head?
Yeah, shouldn't he phase in and out when you hit him? Just automatically?
Oh, I should have turned into a football player.
Yeah, right. So they eventually figure out that Batman has been kidnapped, and so they're looking everywhere for him, and somebody from the bad guys sends the message that where Batman is.
Right. But first, Batman, from his restraints, completely, mummied basically in these titanium restraints, begins to play the bad guys off of each other.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, how much are you getting paid, Grundy? Do you think that's more or less than the Humanites getting paid?" And he's like, "Well, obviously I'm getting paid more. I'm a genius." And Grundy's like, "I don't like that."
Yeah,
and they start fighting, and he starts to sow discord amongst the bad guys.
And he seduces Cheetah.
Yes, he does.
It's like, wow, okay.
Which is like, this is one of the great examples of performance by Kevin Conroy, because he can be like, "I don't need any anti-venom, screw you, Batman," but he can also be like, "Tell me more about your backstory. I understand what it's like to not have people respect you.
Yes, exactly.
They didn't respect your work."
Yeah, and then I think eventually the Joker gets down there and he is alone with Batman, and it seems like he's going to kill him, and then I think the Humanite comes in and is like, he doesn't want you, or is it Grundy?
Yeah.
Grundy comes in, it's like, boss doesn't want you alone with him. Get out of here. But Batman, I think while Grundy is there, asks for water and then spits the water up into the force field thing that's above him, and that turns it off, and then Martian Manhunter can track him, and the rest of the gang shows up, and
Another big fight.
Another big fight.
Big duck statues flying at
and then
randomly flying at Sapphire, and
Yeah.
Green Lantern's like, "Duck."
Yeah.
She gets hit by I tried to tell her. Good stuff like that.
Yeah, it's great. And then Batman gets free, and
No.
Oh, what? Did I skip something?
Not enough. But yes, the Justice League got trounced by the Injustice Gang before, but this time they know their weaknesses and they work together,
Yes.
which is something that the Injustice Gang can never do.
Of course.
And
they're
right before the
fighting
good
with
guys
each
show up, Luthor basically just, shits on all of them and is like, "You're the worst and I don't respect you." And we see that they could never be a team.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because their leader does not respect them and refuses to work with them. And so
Right.
they are pretty easily defeated. Except for the Joker, who is kind of hiding, and he's like, "Well, time to go. Wait a minute, I forgot something in the basement." And
Yes.
he goes down to finish off Batman.
Yes, that's right.
But then at that point, Batman reveals that he could have gotten out of his cage at any time.
But he just wanted to see what was going to happen.
Stuck around to make sure everything went well.
He was curious.
We also forgot that this is all after too, when Luthor kind of flips out and pops off when his plan to destroy the Watchtower fails. But in the midst of all this, Ultra Humanite cures his blood poisoning. Like Ultra Humanite saves his life essentially.
Mm-hmm. And gives him like this armor.
Yeah, he gives him a breastplate that like slows the blood poisoning. And Luthor, of course, is not grateful. Doesn't thank him, and he'll probably never get paid the money that he was promised. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of like how that goes, and they end up back in prison. And it was not Cheetah, even though Batman seduced her. It was not Cheetah that betrayed the team. It was the Ultra Humanite, who never really seemed like he was on board in the first place. And we find out that he's made some kind of deal with Batman.
Yes.
They go back to Stryker's Island, and Luthor is once again tortured by the very loud sounds
Opera
of the
music.
Mikado coming from Ultra Humanite's cell, watching public television. And as the program wraps up, we see that the performance was made possible by a generous donation from Mr. Ultra Humanite.
I know.
Presumably with care of the Wayne Foundation.
Yes.
Yeah, so great little ending there. And a great role for Batman and Kevin Conroy as Batman.
Yeah.
He, for a lot of the show, so Bruce Timm really likes Batman and doesn't like Superman, I guess.
Seems
Which is
that
why
way.
Superman's always getting his ass kicked
Yeah.
in early episodes of Justice League. Although you could argue that he's not back up to full strength after, Darkseid invaded at the end of his show.
Mm-hmm.
And it all leads up, of course, and he's pulling his punches too, because it all leads up to the World of Cardboard speech at the end of Justice League Unlimited. But yeah, Batman gets the job done all of the time, and he gets the heroic actions. He gets to, pilot the safely crash land the satellite when it's coming down, and he gets to do all these cool things. And so a lot of times his delivery, Conroy's delivery of Batman, is just sort of like flat and just sort of, purposefully not engaging with the rest of the team,
Right.
and not being very emotional. But getting to see him sort of reverse Hannibal Lecter these guys and just sort of pick them apart just with his words, doing a little verbal kung fu, is pretty amazing. And the different, the ease with which Conroy shifts between the sort of moods of Batman up to and including his just pleasure at the end of like, no, you're trapped in this basement with me, Joker.
Yes.
Like, you are very unlucky today because I'm going to kick your ass. Yeah, it's just a great showcase for him without even having him, just be him staying in one place for the entire episode.
Yeah. And I still get a kick out of like Joker could have just left, but his weakness is Batman. And he's like, oh no, I got to kill the Batman. I forgot. And so, then he just got he got his butt whooped and
yeah. Yep. That's something that is true, I think, of all of the writers on Justice League, but specifically Stan Berkowitz, who's credited for this episode, but they wrote, as a team, I'm sure, is that they understand these characters. And sure, they're not all super three-dimensional, but they're boiled down enough that you understand how they work. And then when they're in scenes and they do things, you go, that's what they do. Having Humanite kind of be the Quisling at the end is like, yeah, he was never really into this. And he's going to do the Rappin' Ducky episode later. We understand that he's not like a villainous bad guy. He's just kind of a victim of circumstance. And having the JLA characters kind of all act, because when you got 7 people, you don't get a chance to like have a big speech or something like that. Mm-hmm. So having them sort of act in their sort of truncated, abbreviated characters, I feel like the writers of JLA, and as the series goes on to Unlimited, and they add 30 more good guys, they add 20 more bad guys.
Yeah, they
continue to show how well that they understand like the faces in this universe.
It's just, both series are just so well done. I love them so much. And I just perfectly cast, I feel like. And like the writing is great too. And I really like the animation style, which of course is kind of done after Bruce Timm's art style. And like, but like also going back to Ultra Humanite, he's the smartest guy working for Luthor. And, like, he hears Luthor being disrespectful to them all the time and threatening them and, like, calling them idiots and stuff like that. So it makes sense that he would make a deal with Batman because he's like, well, I'm not going to stick around for this to blow up in my face,
right.
Whereas...
I miss my records.
Right.
In my cell.
Right. Whereas, like, the other guys are maybe more despicable, more ruthless, or just want the money.
Yeah.
And, I don't even think he was super tempted by the money necessarily at first by Luthor, but he like, made it so tempting that it was like, well, how can I say no? And then he just was in for the rest of the deal. And then, like you said, he cured his blood poisoning and didn't even get thanked for it. So
yeah.
But I do think it is a good episodes for Batman, and I think especially in the second episode we get to see Kevin Conroy quite a bit, like you were saying, and like his range, and of course he's not going to stay in bed because Superman tells him to stay in bed.
Yeah, right.
And I love too that he's like says to Martian Manhunter, like, I'm going to leave unless you're going to stop me, and Martian Manhunter's like, nope. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So,
of course, a lot of great voice actors in this as well. This is the first appearance of Lex Luthor in the Justice League show. Of course, still voiced by Clancy Brown.
Great Clancy Brown.
Who is, I mean, it's so cool that he's got such a great voice and is such a good voice actor because, a 6'7" guy,
yeah,
300-pound guy. You're not going to find a lot of roles for that guy.
Yeah.
And he could have easily just been the heavy and stuff, but I think that his personality and his talent shine through, in The Highlander alone.
Yeah.
But he's also somebody who can just sit down. It doesn't matter how big you are when you are doing a voice
Absolutely.
of somebody. Yeah.
Right.
And, the story, the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, like, it's as much Luthor's story, I think, as the JLA. Like,
he becomes a big part of
once
it.
he's introduced, it really sort of pops off. I think you would argue that they're still kind of getting things together in this first season.
Yeah.
But once he shows up, things start to really focus in, and he goes on kind of a little ride of his own and develops as a character as the series goes.
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, I suppose maybe this is true. You can tell me if the JLA series are more serialized than Batman the Animated Series, because it seems, I mean, there is an order that you watch them in, right? There is somewhat of a continuity. Like, I think you can watch some of them out of order, maybe.
I don't know if, Fox Kids or whatever was like, don't do continuity. And then later on the WB or whatever it was, they got the chance to do that.
Right.
But they certainly are already doing that. Like, there are a bunch of things in this episode that are follow-ons from things that happened before.
Right.
The Joker, this is the Joker's first appearance since Mad Love, the origin of Harley Quinn, which was near the end, but not like the last episode of the Batman animated series. So he presumably died at the end of that. And then this is his first appearance since then. The kryptonite that he's got came from like a jade statue, or a statue they thought was jade, way back in the Superman animated series. And in that episode, Luthor gets his hands on the statue, and they talk about how every former owner of this statue died of radiation poisoning. So that's something that like was already kind of planted.
Why is he so surprised that, like,
maybe he didn't think,
it's not going to happen to me?
Sure. I'm not just an ordinary human. I'm Lex Luthor.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
And Batman takes the kryptonite away from this guy and then uses it later on in a JLA episode against Amazo, when Amazo's got Superman's powers and therefore his weaknesses. So, like, all this stuff, just, like, shows up later. And the show would do that. It would have something happen, and you're like, oh, that's because of something before. Or a character will be like, this isn't like the last time that we, did this.
And of course, Batman would hold on to kryptonite because he's like, I never know when this might come in handy.
Yeah, just put that in the belt.
Yeah.
Luthor should have, well, I guess he could have taken it back, but it'd be like, well, maybe I've had enough of kryptonite. I am kryptonite at this point.
You keep that.
Yeah. Well, let's move forward in the series to the last episode that we're going to talk about. This is an episode from the last season of Justice League Unlimited, which, as you mentioned, is a show that is a little more, it's funny because it starts off a little more standalone, introducing a lot of characters, extra JLA characters, JSA characters, more minor characters, and examines their stories, while the Big Seven sort of take a step back. But I don't know if this was always the plan or not, but as the series goes on, especially into the last season, the Big Seven come back in a big way. Especially with the return of Hawkgirl to the team. Yeah. So this episode is called This Little Piggy, and it is written by Paul Dini himself. Mm-hmm. What happens in this episode?
So it starts out, and Batman and Wonder Woman are on a stakeout, and there's kind of some flirtation going on between them, which I think is kind of interesting.
Ah, yes.
And they think they're finding like a common burglar or something. And then it turns out to be Circe, who changes people into animals. That's her thing. And she's a really powerful sorceress. And she has, turns out, a huge grudge against Diana's mother, Hippolyta. And so she sees Wonder Woman, and so they have a scuffle. She sees Wonder Woman, and she, is like, well,
I said I would stay away from your mom. I promised I would stay away from your mom, but I didn't promise I would stay away from you.
Right.
And so she turns Diana into a pig. And you know it's Diana still because she has the cuffs on her front legs, which
Yes.
is so darn cute. I freaking love it. And you just, all you see is just like a horrified look on Batman's face and smoke. Yeah. And then we cut to the opening credits. And then you see, I think we see Zatanna's show. And then you see Batman parking the car and there's a pig in the car and you're like, what the heck is going on? And you kind of see, I think you kind of see the bracers, but I'm not sure if they really focus in on that at first. But he goes and he talks to Zatanna and he's like, I really need your help. And he tells her what happened and he's like, I'd really like to keep this between us. Like, I don't want a lot of people to know about this. Just because I don't want I don't want Diana to be embarrassed, I think is kind of the thing. And so she's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll help you. And so they go on like this huge thing. They're trying to find all this stuff for a location spell for Circe because they don't know where she is. I think Zatanna actually, she tries to fix it at first and she's like, I can't. This is a really powerful spell.
Right.
So they try to do a location spell and find Circe, and that doesn't work. And so they try a bunch of different things. Oh, and then Diana goes missing. So they have to find Diana, and Batman calls a few more people in. And there are a bunch of different characters. I can't remember all of them. And they're all like
pretty minor characters.
Yeah, they're trying to track Diana down. And some of them just have like, have you seen this pig posters? And they're knocking on people's doors and stuff like that. And she gets one of the characters who's like a tracker, and I can't remember his name. He's like an
Wannabeast.
Yeah. We'll talk about him later. And he's supposed to be able to talk to animals, and he's a really good tracker. Anyways, he finds Diana, but then she runs away, and so he's following her, and then she goes to this area where there's a bunch of pigs, and it turns out it's like a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, you know that like stockyard that's right in the middle of town?
Just in the middle of Gotham,
Yeah.
you know. And so, yeah, that's bad. And they're trying to find, Batman and Zatanna are trying to find Circe at the same time. So they go to, is it the River Styx? Or,
Yes.
Okay, so they go to the River Styx and they're talking to Justice, or is it Blind Justice? I don't know which one it is.
The goddess of justice.
Goddess of Justice. She's
Yeah.
blind. She's got a scale. And she says, just don't look in her eyes. And they both have put blindfolds on. You're like, what is going to happen? And the boat comes up and out steps Medusa. And Justice is like, so you knew Circe, right? You were cellmates with her. She's like, oh yeah, I was cellmates with her. And you're just like, oh my God. And like Medusa is like gabbing, and they're like, well, what can you tell us about her? And like, she ever mention Hippolyta? She was like, oh, she would never shut up about her. And then she said, oh, and one other thing, she wanted to headline, and I can't remember the theater name. It was
The amphitheater.
In
Greece.
And people are like, what? And she was like telling them all these things, like, you know, like everybody knows this. And she wanted to be a singer, like it was like her cousins or her sisters, the Sirens. I can't remember if they were cousins or sisters. Anyways, that was her dream. So they're like, okay, that's where Circe is. So they go there and they're like, look, Circe, she's like ready to fight them. And Batman is like, so magic comes at a price, I've learned. So what's your price? You name it. I just want Diana change back. And she's like, and he's like, anything. And the next thing we see is Batman singing Am I Blue? And it's fantastic. And everybody just loves it and everything. And then Cersei's like, a deal is a deal. And she changes Diana back right before she was about to get slaughtered. Which is,
Right.
great timing. So yeah. And then we have this cute little scene at the very end of the episode where Diana is like asking, where Wonder Woman is asking Batman, so did I miss anything? He's like, not much. And then she's like, she starts singing humming Am I Blue? And he just kind of smiles. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leading to, the Wonder Bat ship continues.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked the Wonder Bat ship. I don't know. I felt like, at least in the Justice League series, I liked the idea of them together.
It's pretty much original to the Justice League series.
They did so many things that I really liked.
Here comes a hot girl rant.
Yeah. I loved Hot Girl so much, and I love Hot Girl with Jon Stewart. I really loved them together, and it really kind of upset me they weren't together at the end of the series. But it's the way it goes sometimes.
That is the way that it goes. This is a very fun episode. It's another episode that ends up on top 10 lists for Justice League Unlimited. And it is specifically, it's written by Paul Dini. And of course, Dini and Tim were sort of the showrunners or, the head writers of the show. And I think Tim said at one point that he was a big fan of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the way that the show didn't have to be serious all the time. They would do like the comedy episodes or the musical episodes.
Everybody talks about the musical from Buffy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's like what they wanted to do with this. Have an episode that was outside of continuity, outside of the whole Luthor's I need Brainiac, storyline.
Right.
Just do something fun that wasn't connected to that. Have a bunch of in-jokes. And sort of like references and stuff like that, and just see how far they could push it. And I think that they, I think they succeeded. I mean, it's pretty funny.
It is pretty funny.
And it's funny to see our characters in these kind of silly situations, but still doing, acting like our characters. Mm-hmm. And so immediately Batman, of course, is like, we've got to find Diana. We've got to, we got to investigate. And so he calls a tracker who is unfortunately Buona Beast.
Yes.
There's no other trackers that we could get.
I know.
And a couple other reserve people, because he doesn't want to could Green Lantern's ring find a pig in the city? Sure, probably. But we're going to call the Elongated Man instead.
Right.
Get Crimson Avenger out of his wheelchair. Get him out there.
I know, right? Could Martian Manhunter sense where Diana is?
Just sense for piggy thoughts?
Yeah, right.
But kind of stuck up piggy thoughts?
Right.
Yeah, probably. We're going to pass on that, though, because we gotta keep this on the down low.
Yes.
It's just really fun, and it has there's a couple different aspects to this. One, it's got kind of there's the 40s, show tunes and jazz numbers.
Yes.
And the sort of Howard Hawksian dialogue, both between Batman and Wonder Woman and Batman and Zatanna. No Zat Bat ships at all? No?
I feel like she's too young for him. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
You don't think so?
Z's look, she's got magic, first of all.
Yeah.
But she's got to be older than she seems, right? Because otherwise, if she's just I don't know what they've done with the characters now, but she dated Constantine in the past, and now he ages in real time. I don't know how they figure that out. But also, she's like an old show hand. You know what I mean? She can't, if she's just new to stage and magic, it doesn't work. She has to be somebody who's kind of been around and seen stuff. And speaking of Constantine, he does not fit into this universe. But this is kind of a Constantine-esque story. Batman needs a magic problem solved, and so he goes to the magic person he knows. And so she takes him through the world of magic. They go to a magic thrift shop where she's kind of wheeling and dealing with this guy. And then later they meet some major mythological figures, but it's no big deal.
Right.
And so, if Constantine existed in this universe, this would be Constantine instead of Zatanna.
I mean, that really makes sense when you point that out. Now that I don't feel I don't know, I maybe I don't mean to be an ageist or anything like that either. You can have age differences with couples as long as there isn't somebody who's like super young. You know, that's I guess where
Yeah,
I
like
would-
Indiana Jones and Marion.
What?
No.
I don't know. I mean, I guess. So yeah, sure. Zatanna and Batman, that could work. You know.
I like. Plus, I like that she does the magic show, which, in a world where there is a Superman and there is a I don't know, Morgan Le Fay is attacking like last week, and you know, a wizard is attacking the city the next week.
Right.
People go to magic shows, I guess.
Apparently they do.
Would they want sleight of hand, or do they know that she's a JLAer and they want her to do real magic? Because we get a little bit of both, because she does the typical saw a dude in half, which is like, all right, fine. But then at the end of the show, she's like, now watch this. And like reaches into a hat and a huge hand comes down, picks a man out of the audience.
I know.
Then pulls him through her hat and he's small. And then she makes him big again. And there's just no, that's not sleight of hand. She's just doing unholy magic. So
That
is that
was
what
terrifying.
Is that what people came for? But anyway,
Great question.
after
Maybe
the
a little
show's
bit of
over,
both.
she's in, you know, the back room. Because it's a kid's show, we don't get like a scene of her changing like they always want to do with Zatanna.
Yeah.
But she's watching the show on her crystal ball. She's kind of going over the tape. She's like, we got to tighten that up a little bit.
Yeah,
And
that was great.
I like the mundane sort of side of it. You know, this is where we bring out like the comedy, right? Buona Beast is this amazing tracker. He can talk to animals. And so he tracks Diana down to a stockyard full of pigs, and he's like, I think I'm gonna have a problem with this one. And he's talking to the pigs. He's like, come on guys, you haven't seen a pig with bracelets on? Help me out here. Just like subverting all of these things that we know about these amazing characters.
Right. And I think he says something like, have you seen a pig kind of stuck up, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it just came in here. Come on, guys, help me out.
But at the same time, the characters are still the characters and true to them. So once the pig gets away, and the guy who works at the, I guess they have a shotgun on hand for emergencies.
It's
But the guy
troubling.
who works at the slaughterhouse is like, just shoots at the Diana pig. And then she blocks it with her little
That
bracelets.
was great, though. That moment was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And ultimately there's still a lot of like cohesion in it, because Batman knows the song, because he talks about how he had staked out this club once to protect a singer and learned the song that way. And they're doing a stakeout at the beginning. So he's being consistent there. You know, at the beginning, he knows her because she's like, I'm Circe. She's like, she turns people into animals. I know, I've read the Odyssey.
That was such a great line.
And this isn't his world, but by the end of it, when he's ready to confront her, like he solves the problem, because he's like, I understand that magic has a price.
So what's yours?
What's your price?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's ready to sort of play the game now.
I love that. I also think that like Medusa was really great, because like people know Medusa. People might know Medusa more than they even know Circe.
Sure.
But like she was like such like a I don't even know what that trope is, but like the woman who's had a lot of cigarettes and been around the block.
Me and
like,
Girl, we go way back.
that it was like so unexpected, because that's not what you expect
Right.
when you think of Medusa.
She's a jailbird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. And then they like, Justice was like going to take some years off of her sentence, and she was like, oh, ring a ding ding.
Yeah, right. It probably won't surprise you to know that the two songs sung in this episode, Lulu's Back in Town and Am I Blue, are of course owned by Warner Brothers Music. So that's
Of course.
takes care of that.
Of course.
That one's
Yeah,
free.
I liked Circe's number too. It was fun.
Do you just do it and know it's fine because you've got like a book? Let's look up. Yeah, okay, we got that one. Or do you have to like submit a thing, then write a check for $0, and that's got to go in the books? And you know, how does that all work?
I hope it's the first option, because if you have to, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of bureaucracy with DC Warner Brothers, because that just seems like the way they work.
Yeah.
But if you had to submit some paperwork and write a check for $0, that's just so much more work.
Well, just like fill out the form that we're officially requesting, you know, licensing of this song. Okay,
From ourselves.
Fee waived.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's so funny they had to throw some gags away. Apparently there was one scene that they wanted to do. They have never ended up animating it, where the Joker was going to be in it. And
Oh.
so at one point, the Joker and his gang, are getting ready to do a crime. They're going to break into, I don't know, a cream custard pie factory or something. And they look and they see Batman running by, holding a pig. And the Joker's like, I can't top that. Let's go home, everybody.
I mean, that's a great joke, but I can see how it wouldn't necessarily fit because it's only like a half an hour
it didn't.
show.
It didn't fit into the tone, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty great episode. Obviously featuring the very impressive voice of Mr. Batman himself. And
Yeah, he was really great singing voice.
yeah, well, he was Juilliard.
I know.
Apparently, he was
Scholarship to Juilliard.
He was Robin Williams's roomie.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think it's interesting too that like he came to this character not necessarily being a comic book fan and not really knowing that much about Batman and everything, but he came as a somebody who has a lot of background in the stage.
Yeah.
Somebody who was trained in Juilliard and like just really got into the head of this character.
Yeah, he did. I don't know. Maybe it was Batman, but he got out of school and he did some stage. He did a lot of stage.
Yeah.
A little Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And did a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Was he on like Tour of Duty? He was on some Vietnam show for a while.
I can't remember.
And then of course in the early 90s got Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So like he didn't really do a lot of movies. Like if he's done a
Right.
movie, it's probably as the voice of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's weird because he's just so good looking and he's so distinctive and has that great voice that you just
Yes.
think that he would, in another life, he would be, a matinee movie guy.
Yeah.
Their loss, our gain.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was really nice going to a lot of conventions and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And like, in recent years and stuff. And we got to see him not that long ago and
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that. That was a cool experience hearing him talk.
There's, if you want to know more about, and you're curious about his life and him kind of coming up, he wrote a story, and I can't remember who illustrated it, but it was for a DC Comics Pride special that came out. I think I said before that it came out a while ago, but I think it came out like this year,
Is that right?
early this year.
Okay.
And it's called the DC Pride special, I think. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But it's about him and his early life and getting into the business and being gay
Yeah.
and how, he came from, he talks about his family sometimes and he came from like a very conservative religious family. And so that wasn't really going to work.
Right.
And-
Grew up in the 50s.
Yeah. And even being, even grew up in the 50s.
Well, he was born in the 50s.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah.
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 He's not that old.
Yeah.
And he, and so he got into theater and then got to like New York and everything and Broadway and thought like, well, this is better, right? But still ran into the same thing,
Yeah.
like even in TV,
Mhm.
and just felt like, well, I just can't be who I am. And, you can understand the time, I guess, but it's just so unfortunate that he couldn't really be who he was. So by the time that he, had the opportunity to audition for this role, he kind of thought, I'm already doing this.
Yeah.
There is a mask that I put on, and that is chatty, straight actor to do these roles. Not that you can't be gay and be a Chad, but there's
Yeah,
a
you
part of
can.
me that I'm hiding.
Yeah.
And the comic, and he also talks about this later in his career. He didn't come out until 2016. I mean, that's how ingrained I think it gets sometimes. And I don't think it was like a secret, like his friends and family knew, but it was
Right.
never part of his bio. He wouldn't be interviewed on topics like that. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that he finally was like, yeah, I can talk about this. And it gives so much more context to his story.
It does.
You just understand so much more about him. And it's so, I mean, you can't blame him, and everybody lives, or should be able to live at the point that they're comfortable. But if our world wasn't so screwed up, I guess we wouldn't need this. But if our world wasn't so screwed up, he could be open about who he is. And then think about it. You see all these people, the guy passes away, and every single comment is, this is Batman.
Yes.
When I read the comics, this is Batman. This is the Batman that I know because I'm not a comic fan. And what do we got? Zack Snyder movies? This is Batman to me. This is who I think of.
Yeah.
And if people knew that Batman was gay, just think of all the people who grew up who our world is still that way. They are in the same position still. They go, I can't ever tell anybody who I am. I can never be myself.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God that he was able to share that with us, at least, later in his life, so we can still have that. And I encourage anybody, if it's online,
Yes.
I think people have reproduced it, and that DC is like, it's important because DC is not trying to take it down, right?
Yes.
Because
I suppose
normally they
that's
would
true.
be. But yeah, you can find it online. I encourage you to read it and learn about his life and the struggle that he's had. But yeah, what a great guy, what a great actor,
Just
and
fantastic.
good singer too.
I found the story recently by just Googling Kevin Conroy Imager, and it was one of the first things that came up.
Yeah.
So don't look for Kevin Conroy memes, but look for so it's illustrated, but it's written by him.
I'm not always the knight, but when
Right.
I am, I'm Batman.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of what a Kevin Conroy meme would
Yeah,
be.
I know, right? But just absolutely amazing. And I think he's the Batman, and everybody who plays Batman, I like other, actors who have portrayed the character over the years, but everybody kind of gets compared to Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
And
will be going forward.
I don't even want to apologize for it. It's just the way that it is, because he was so much the character, and he just was the character, and we never doubted that he was Batman and he was Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And I think even in that story, like you were saying, he talked about how, like Bruce Wayne and Batman, he had a private face and a public face, because he was himself and out to hit, like you're saying, to his friends and family, but not in public. And so I think that that's really important to recognize that, and to you just read about his life, and it's he went through a lot, and he kind of knew he was on his own, and he fought really hard, I think, to be successful, and he worked really hard at it too, and he was just very talented as well. And I think it's just such a gift that we got that story from him.
Yeah.
And I'm just really thankful for that. And I agree with you. I wish that our world wasn't so messed up, and that people didn't feel like they couldn't come out. And it just breaks my heart, but it like you said, a lot of people still feel that way today, unfortunately. And I think that if we had known that much sooner that, hey, Batman is gay, that probably would have helped some people, but we know now, so maybe it's helping people now.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I'm still really sad about it.
Yeah. But, all of his friends, I was just looking at Tim Daly's Twitter account. Tim was the voice of Superman for a long time.
Yeah.
Not the voice on JLA, but during the Superman animated series years. And they were great friends. They had a web series early in the days of, people doing things on the web, the Funny or Die era, the pre YouTube dominance era.
Sure.
Tim Daly had a little show that he did with his celebrity friends. And so
That's fun.
Kevin Conroy was on that sometimes. And he also echoed the same idea, just it's sad we're all broken up, but Kevin would absolutely want us to be happy and to not not wallow in sadness like the Batman
Yeah.
in
and
his cave.
I'm trying not to. And I am really happy that we took the time to grieve and we celebrated him as well. And we talked about his work. And I would also say that if you're not familiar with Kevin Conroy's work, then you've got your work cut out for you.
Oh, yeah.
And go watch some of these shows, or go watch all of these shows, honestly. And just
If you can. Probably on HBO Max still. They wouldn't get rid of that stuff, would they?
Don't.
Actually, you can almost always find Blu-rays
That's
of
true.
this stuff.
Yeah.
Because these are moneymakers. So they're not going to be hard to find. They're always in print. I got the I bought the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons the other day, and and I was looking around. They still have these wherever you want to find them. So Justice League, Batman, Superman, you can find all that stuff.
That's nice.
Check it out and honor and appreciate this guy who has changed all our lives. Also, get the video games too.
Yeah.
They're always putting those out. I think you can get a set that's got a disc that's got like all 3 games on it.
I mean,
all 3 Arkham games.
That seems
voiced,
like the way to go.
by him. So that's out there.
If they're smart, they would make more of those right now, because I think they could possibly have more people.
Oh yeah, we got a
buying.
real Whitney Houston situation.
Yeah, I think so.
or a Michael Jackson situation.
Yep.
Beat it, Joker. Well, that's our show honoring Kevin Conroy, also Kevin O'Neill and Carlos Pacheco as well. People stop dying.
Yeah,
Let's
really.
make a deal. Let's just do this for a little bit. Let's after Betty White. I know it seems like the floodgates opened.
Kind of does.
And the river Styx flows one way, but let's hold up on it till the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's what I want. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Make this happen. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us, subscribe to us at Just Enough Trope, wherever you find us, and share with us your favorite Kevin Conroy works, or a story about meeting him, or something that you liked about what he did as Batman, or really any of his roles. Also, do that on Discord as well. We've got a Discord channel, and you can find a link to it in our show notes. Join us there, talk about Batman, talk about Kevin Conroy, or any nerdy topic that you can think of. Get to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to the show. Give us a rating and a review, because it really does help us out. And to that end, give us 5 stuck-up pigs. 5 stuck-up pigs. Although Buona Beast would say that. Buona Beast, not great, but it's
No.
one of those things we can reclaim, maybe.
Yeah.
I think there is a
white
Buona
guy.
Beast now. I think they kind of just let this guy go. So basically what he is he's a white adventurer who goes to Africa, and Africa is better than anybody's Africa. And so it'd be like, what if Black Panther was white, right?
It's insulting.
Yeah, it's not great. And he's introduced here just as kind of a silly thing. I mean, it is kind of silly. But he's also a legacy character, and I think that Buona Beast is an African now. I'll have to double check on that.
Yeah.
But it's time.
Yeah.
Get the hashtags out. But we'll skip that. Just give us 5 stars instead. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back next week, talk about something hopefully happier. And until
Yeah.
then, we're signing off. I'm your host, Caliban.
I'm your co-host, Mikan Hana.
Keep the geek fires burning.